Hello friends, Bala again. Welcome back. Yesterday we saw introduction about MongoDB. Today's session we see about terminology. So let's quickly jump into agenda for today's session. Traditional databases like SQL terminology and NoSQL terminology. You already know, in yesterday's session, I have shown you JSON as well as BSON documents. But today, I will show you sample uh, document, I document how it looks like in your MongoDB. So along with you will see licensing model in MongoDB. Okay, so in our traditional databases, if you think about collection of information or collection of data, you will call it as table. So table is nothing but looks like this is simply looks like a table. Okay, so within a table you will see like first name, last name, address line, city, like. So what do you call them? So this one you will call it as fields. Okay, so you will call it as various fields, and here you see horizontal ones. So entire this row of data you will call it as horizontal ones, you will call it as row or a record. So similarly vertical ones, so whatever you see vertically, entire vertical column, you will call it as columns. So and as you know, in order to maintain relation between two tables, you will be using, you will be considering like primary key. So that is another terminology we will use in our traditional databases, along with in order to make improve performance of your queries. So you will try to apply indexing in your table. So there is no limit in traditional databases, so you can get created n number of indexes. So that is what you will call it as index in traditional database. So this is what very high level. This is very important. So how the terminology gets varying from SQL databases and NoSQL databases. So table normally a collection of information, but in MongoDB you will call it as collection. In DynamoDB you will call it as table. In Cassandra again you will call it as table. In Coach database you will call it as data bucket. In SQL horizontal one you will call it as row. In MongoDB you cannot think of like the data is available horizontally, but it looks like JSON document, but you will call it as document. You are going to see a sample document how exactly it looks like in MongoDB. So as of now you will consider it as document. In DynamoDB you will call it as an item. DynamoDB is nothing but like it's AWS managed service. NoSQL databases and is columnar database. So it is from AWS. Along with the Cassandra, you will call it as row. In Coach database, you will call it as document. In SQL, column vertical ones. In MongoDB, you will call it as a single field. In DynamoDB, you will call it as attribute. In Cassandra, column, and in Coach database, field. I just explained primary key in SQL database or NoSQL databases is nothing but maintaining relation between tables. But in MongoDB, you will call it as object ID. In DynamoDB, again primary key in Cassandra, document ID in Coach database. So in order to make improvement of your query, you will create limitless number of indexes. So that is what in SQL database you will call it as index. In MongoDB again you will call it as index. But remember, there is a limit. You cannot create multiple indexes. So there is a limit in NoSQL databases. In DynamoDB, it's a secondary index. Cassandra, index. In Coach database again, index. In order to fetch data from multiple tables, and you can create it as another table kind of, so that is nothing but view. In SQL database you will call it as, in MongoDB again you will call it as view. In DynamoDB it's a global secondary index, and in Cassandra database materialize view. As you know, in Coach database again you will call it as view. So in traditional databases you can call, you can store nested tables within a table, another table kind of you can get stored. So those are nothing but nested tables are object. In MongoDB also you can get stored documents in nested fashion, that is nothing but embedded document. So in DynamoDB you will call it as map, even in Cassandra and Coach database. Collection of elements you will call it as array. So in SQL you will call it as array, in MongoDB you will consider it as array, but in DynamoDB, Cassandra and Coach database you will call it as list. So this table looks very simple, but provide you very high level idea about how exactly the terminology varies between SQL and various NoSQL databases. This one already you have seen in last session, but again just for reference I got it up over here. So JSON looks like this. It will get stored internally in the form of binary JSON format. So again this is another example. In MongoDB, how exactly document looks like. So here you see two documents. ID, this is one object ID, this is one document, and this is second document. So this is the object ID. This is the primary key like in SQL databases, and it looks like a JSON document, JSON format, right? So this is parent, and here name, again you are coming up with another JSON. So this one you will call it as embedded document. Again here one JSON document. So this is embedded document. Here you see this is one embedded document, and inside another embedded document you come up over here. So very high level your MongoDB document looks like this. So later, as you know, any of the tool, if you think about licensing plays a critical role, but as you know, MongoDB is open source database. So even though it is open source database, but because of lot of limitations, so open source database, if you go for, you can just use it for testing purpose, but you may not be use it for production level enterprise applications. So that is where you should purchase license. So that is where MongoDB enterprise come into picture, along with very high level you can host your MongoDB in various platforms like in virtual machine, in Windows or Linux or Red Hat Linux, Amazon Linux, even in CentOS, Mac, kind of. But today's buzzword is like in cloud industry, managed. So managed means you don't think about hardware, but you just go ahead and use your application or tool. That is nothing but managed. So that is where MongoDB also came up with one platform like Atlas. So Atlas, you can uh, use it in any of the cloud providers like AWS, Azure, even Google Cloud Platform. You just open an online account like Gmail, how you will use. You will just register and straightforward go ahead and use. You don't need to install anything. So that is where like MongoDB Atlas come into picture. Just this is what very high level idea, but you are going to see the same in next sessions. But as of now, this is what we design for this MongoDB terminology. If you have any questions, please mail it to me. Hope this session is helpful. Thank you so much.